Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Snowpiercer. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately picking up in the aftermath of everything that went down, and obviously we kind of get Pike's perspective in the opening monologue about like why he monologue says voiceover, where he basically explains like why, like this has been a festering wound that's rotting. And it has been for a while when it comes to Leighton. But it's just like for him, and I think what adds more fuel to the fire for him, as he kind of explains later, is like the fact is he feels like Andre forgot. It's like, oh, Andre's acting like he's high and mighty in this position, but he's forgetting the long list of dead bodies that are there, which includes what he made me do, that I was just his errand boy, you know? It's like, right, like he doesn't get to just walk away and forget everything that led to this. He kind of feels like Andre has forgotten. And it's just like, and Pike even saying like, I am the type who always picked at wounds and stuff like that. I can never let it heal. And Andre thought everything was good, but he couldn't see the wound that was festering right in front of him, you know? And so he is bothered by it. He is kind of having this nightmare where like Strong Boy and Ruth are there, and it's like, right, they're not on his side. And so obviously, the others came to him and it's like, yo, someone tried to kill Andre. And he tried to say like, oh, well, you know, like, Andre's not really a Tilly anymore. It's like, yeah, but once a Tilly, always a Tilly. So, the fact this Pike was brought in because he's one of the few people that Andre trusts. Is like, right, like, got close ranks, got bringing the people I trust most. It's like, Z, I want you and Astrid to, like, watch you, Astrid, and Pike, I want you to watch over us. You know, it's like, whoever it was came after. Because even Z going as far as, like, yo, whoever this is that had issue with Andre, like, it's a coward. Like, you know how we handle stuff in the tail? Face to face, you know, like man to man. That's like, so kind of using a bomb and going like you don't even have the guts to like face Andre directly is kind of like the whole point. So I think a lot of its stuff in this episode was slowly but surely chipping away at Pike. So, and it's so interesting how he's so close right then and there. Obviously, Andre's kind of going a little stir crazy, like sitting around doing nothing, especially with Andre having a concussion and everything, and the doctor saying we have to kind of keep an eye on things. This is all kind of happening obviously, what's happening as a byproduct of, like, nearly getting blown up and everything. So, obviously, Till is on the job looking through stuff because she knows better than anyone the bomb that was used. It was something it could only be made by someone from the tail, which Light is one of the few people, which, you know, Till wasn't even like, you're not even a suspect, but you point me in the right direction. So the book, which has all like the weaponry stuff like stashed in it, like how to make weapons, how to make bombs and stuff, the pages were torn out. So it confirms that someone from the tail had to have done it, but specifically had to be someone from like the council who knew what was what, which Andre immediately knew it had to be Pike because most of them are dead. So the only other people that would be around is the person right there with him. And it's so sad because Zara had just let Pike hold their baby. Obviously, he was kind of upset too because it's like, wait, you named the baby like using a third tradition instead of the Taylor tradition of using the name closest city, which obviously Andre was like, yeah, but it's because that name fits best. And it's just, once again, it's just all of it just adds more fuel to the fire. Just like, right, I'm making the right choice. I think everything that throughout this episode made him believe that even more. To the point, like even he was like, oh, you'd actually think I'd go so far as hurt your baby? Really? Like, come on, Andre, like because it's like you guys are freaked out about it already. It's like, to be fair, you were coddling the baby and be like, I can't give it to you right now because it's like, if I give her to you, then you'll like use it as an opportunity to hurt me. But then it's like, but the fact that you think I would do something to your baby, you know, he's like, I can't believe you think I'm such a monster. So obviously Andre wanted to avoid making like the entire train publicly know about what Pike did, because he's like, right, I don't want the entire train to be seen as an enemy to Pike, because he's not in the best condition right now. He's like, right, whatever this is between me and him, I want to be the one to kind of settle it. He ends up bringing the tail in, but the tailies in particular, like Z and Astrid, like, no, there's no way it would be Pike. When it was time for the war, Pike stood by your side. It's like, yeah, but what he did right now could threaten everyone, because even Tail's like, he has enough explosive that could end up knocking the train off the track. So this is kind of in everyone's best interest. And you could tell some of the tailies didn't appreciate Andre being like, this is an order. It's like, you ordering us around, really? Like, where's that brotherhood, that commonality of us being tailies? Like, where did all that go? Now we're like listening to your barking orders, like your head honcho. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like, he's already been in this position before, and it was complicated after season 1, and it just seems like things have gotten even more complicated. It doesn't ease up, you know? Which things only get more complicated because Pike ends up running into Asha, which that you could tell that was a recipe for disaster. Obviously, she was hiding away from everyone because I think in general she doesn't like being around a lot of people, but especially because people are asking her a whole bunch of questions, and yeah. Like, Pike already saw through it to some extent, but sadly she ended up confirming it this episode. He's like, oh, 8 years in a hole. He's like, yeah, it doesn't sound like the new Eden you promised. And in that moment you could tell she's like, damn, I messed up. I messed up so bad. So he's like, right. I knew from the beginning I had a feeling that Andre's whole situation was a lie. Which, obviously, Ruth was in on the lie. At least because he kind of, because Ruth ended up finding him later on. Because at first she's like, no, Mr. Pike and I have gotten close. And they're like, wait, close? Like, I guess it is a thing of maybe Andre thought like, oh, I never saw that pairing coming. Because they are like an unlikely pair. It's like, yeah, but like, we were here 6 months fighting your war together. We got pretty close. It's almost like, yeah, who are you to really judge anybody with who they got close to? But in the end of it all, like, Ruth ended up finding him because she had a pretty good idea where he was, and she wanted to talk him down, like, right, you can turn yourself into me, like, we can end this civilly, like, it doesn't have to, like, turn bad. But for him, it's like, no, like, it has to be this way. Because he does ask Ruth, like, oh, like, almost like, did you know? But then later on, he kind of asked Andre, so it makes you think, like, he wasn't sure, but Andre's silence was damning. Because for him, it's like, oh, you corrupted her. Because I guess for him, it's like, Andre's way of doing is using and lying to people. In his mind, Ruth, she's honest. She is someone that, I think, despite them being on opposite sides, Ruth has always been very true to who she is and what she believed at the time. And yes, her beliefs have shifted, but she's always been steadfast. She would never, like, lie and technically, like, use people. Like, that is Andre's tactic. But you know, the fact is she signed off on it, but I think in his mind it's like, no, like, Ruth is beyond reproach. I think it's because in his mind, because he loves her, but also it's just like, he saw what kind of person she is, and it's like, just, I think he's in his anti-Andre bag right now, so any fuel to that, anything would have just, you know, added more to that. So he created his narrative, and it's like, I don't know, would Ruth probably be a better leader? I don't know. Would she be more deserving of leading the train than Andre? I don't know. Like, because even Andre says, like, right, me and Pike, we were enemies before we became friends. And so even Andre immediately didn't recognize, like, where this came from out of nowhere. Because, once again, he didn't see everything that was festering right before his eyes. And I think that probably makes Pike feel even more infuriated. It's like, you didn't see me. I'm just a means to an end. I'm a tool that you can pull out of the bag whenever you need me for something. That's when you come to me. Other than that, you toss me. It's like, you don't see me. I'm just a means to an end to you. He feels like that's what so many people on the train are to him. It's like, he's treating Andre like he is Wilford. Like, oh, like, people are pieces on a chessboard for you. Because even Ruth had asked, like, please tell me you're not doing this for my sake. And it's like, is he? Is he doing it for his own sake? Is it for his own sake disguised as like he's doing it for Ruth? Is Ruth just the excuse he needed? Justification to do what he's got to do because he believes it's the right thing to do? Or whether it is just simply like, no, his belief is like, no, this is the right thing. Andre has to be, the crown has to be taken from him and given to Ruth. She's the only person that can rightfully lead this train in the right direction. It's interesting, too, speaking of the crown, like, you get Wilford's situation this episode. Audrey traded one of LJ's dad's eyes, and the moment she popped in her mouth, I was like, oh, right, I forgot that was, like, that weird little thing that you do. It's like, yeah, because even Love later on, Tilly was like, God, you're such a freaking weirdo. Because she's just like at the bar with it on her arm. I was like, oh, that's so weird that you do that. I completely forgot that was your thing. Especially knowing, like, right, she is the one that actually poked her dad's eye out with a fork, if I remember correctly. It's just like, I don't know, man. That's just a weird little thing. And so Audrey didn't get what she wanted though. She got to visit Joseph, and it's like, okay, we'll get everything back. Like, Andre's vulnerable right now. He ended up having to someone tried to kill him, so he's vulnerable right now. But Wilford's not in the right mindset, especially like he's like, yeah, after basically that deathless, wakeless kind of slumber, he was like, it was terrible, and it made him reflect on a lot of stuff. It's like seeing Wilford like that. Like I said, like a couple episodes ago, like he seemed like the boogeyman, and yet when he was in this state, it's just he looks so less scary. Although that strength and vigor that he had is gone, and even to the point, Audrey's like, what happened to you? She's like, no. I never wavered. I spent 6 months in this, locked up in this, still fighting for you, fighting for us. Like because he's like, yeah, but maybe there's some truth to this new Eden thing. She's like, shut up. No. What is all that without power? The fact of the matter is, this train, your train, and it's like he lost a lot of that spark, and it's so sad because Audrey's like, I became who I became again because of you, and now you're a shell of your former self. Like, I'm curious to see what she does, because I was wondering if she was going to be better on the right, after her talk with Teal last episode, but it's like, no, this might in fact be her rock bottom, that her only foundation to holding on to this version of herself, who she became. It all means nothing now when the man she became this way for, the man who forged her into this again, isn't even who he was. So maybe this is her rock bottom, or maybe this is leading to her rock bottom. Like, will she snap back from this, or will she be like, right, if he's not going to carry the torch, I'll do it on my own? I don't know, because she might need his guiding hand, because without him, he's lost right now, and without him, she's lost, maybe. I don't know what to really take away from that, but it's like, yeah, she definitely didn't get what she wanted. And we even see later on, Wilford is looking through the book that Andre was looking at, and he's seeing some of the same stuff. So I think he's either he heard what Andre was saying, and because he says like there's merit to the science, so maybe he's looking at stuff being like, yeah, this is most likely the case. So he might actually kind of side with Andre now. I don't know what to expect from this Wilford situation. You can never be too careful of a wolf in sheep's clothing, but it doesn't seem like he's faking it or anything like that. At least, like I said, it doesn't seem like it, but other than that, we also had the whole Roach situation where Ruth came to him and like, right, someone attacked Andre, like, it's time for you to get back to work, Brakeman. It's like, right, just tell the psychiatrist whatever he wants. It's like, you and I both know that psychiatrist only got put in a position of psychiatrist because he's the only one that brought a whole bunch of self-help books. I'm like, oh, that's interesting to know that that's how you got the job. And even Ruth is like, yes, well, you're 100% right. But still, tell him what he needs to hear so he can let you go. But for him, it's like, no, this is where I gotta stay. Because he's like, right, if I leave here, it doesn't matter. All I'm going to be able to do is think about Wilford. The fact is that he's still alive, and I want to kill him. I want to wring his neck. And ended up being Alex who actually reached out to Carly and was like, oh, no, like, I don't blame your dad for trying to kill my dad. And she's like, I do, because he failed. And it's like, yeah, she's like, yeah, because your dad overcomplicated things. It's like, oh, I had to, like, my plan was simple when I tried to kill my dad. And someone's like, oh. Like, so I guess it was kind of nice knowing, like, oh, cool, so I'm not the only one with a jacked up family. Like, knowing, like, oh, she's like, because it's like, you might think I'm a Wilfordite, but it's like, nah, I'm not all about supporting my dad. She was like another person that was caught underneath his tyranny. She was just another victim of his. But she actually ended up pointing Carly in the right direction. It's like, kind of like, yeah, my dad doesn't even want to see me. It's like, dude, but it's like on some level, despite everything, she's upset right now, but that's because she loves her dad and she doesn't like seeing him in this state, because it's like, right, we're all we have and we should be there for each other. So with a little extortion, Alex was able to make it happen so they could see each other. And I thought it was interesting because Roach is like, talks about it like he's like, all I have is this anger in me. The fact is that your mom was always the source of like calming that down. Like, even when I lost myself to my anger, I'd look to her and it just evaporated. And he's like, without her here, like, all he has is that anger. And she's like, let me be that. And he's like, I can't. It's not your job to like kind of take care of me. It's the other way around. But also, it's like, you're a full-grown woman now. You need to find your own way. She's like, I will, but I need you by my side. And so she was the one kind of convincing him to finally leave, you know, say what he needed to say to leave. And I'm curious what that's going to do for Roach in the long run. Like that kind of just, I think there's something you could almost see with the whole parallel to everything with Pike happening with Roach as well. But Roach, because Ruth had said, like, if the longer you hold on to it, the more you're letting Wilford win. So he's also in a state where it's like, you doing what you did might end up benefiting everyone in the long run. We have no idea what that trickle out will be, like this change in Wilford, whether it'll be continuous, whether something's going to happen to shift him back. Like, we'll have to wait and see, but it might be beneficial in the long run, your attempt to murder him. So, but circling back to everything with Pike, it comes down to the old Taily way of Yvonne's old Yvonne's way, and it's basically a sit down. Basically, you have a face to face, see eye to eye, and you basically express your grievances, and both parties have to agree to either make peace or turn to the knives, because it's either we're going to settle this, put it all behind us, bury the hatchet, or we're literally going to fight each other to the death. And it's like, yeah. So Till wasn't too happy about this option, neither was Zara, but it's like, right, like this is a Tail situation, so it has to be solved in a very Tail way. So even Pike, it's like he gave the bomb to Ruth when he came there, and she's like, oh, I can't stick around. He's like, no, it's kind of a Till thing. So she ends up having to leave, and she ends up going to drink with Till, Roach, and Carly, and being with them at the time. And it's just because no one wanted things to come to this, you know? And sadly, during their conversations, like, you know, Andres makes it clear, like, yeah, you think I haven't forgotten all those who have died because of me? Because, you know, Strong Boy, Santiago, like, it's none of it's lost on me. All that was lost. He's like, I'm sorry about the last Australian. Like, I left you guys out in the cold. Like, I've done a lot. I get it. You know, but he's like, come on, like, Pike, what do you want? You want another racket? He's like, oh, look at you with all this power to finally give me whatever it is that I want. Like, all this God-given power you've got now. And he's just, come on, be my child's godfather. Like, you know, and almost in that interesting, like, it's like, Pike is like, yeah. He's like, I almost ball it. I can almost see that happening if it wasn't for the fact that I could see through it all. Because for him, it was a situation of maybe if he had never got confirmation from his contact with Asha, maybe things would be different. I don't know. Who knows how that conversation would have played out if that Asha New Eden thing wasn't on the board. But it's like, oh yeah, like, what are you going to do? Like, yeah, like, to keep up your lie or whatever, call for the knives. And so Andre has to, because he can't let, like, this is everyone's last hope. Like, if the truth comes out now, the entire train's going to turn against him. This is something that brought everyone together after everything, and if the truth comes out, then it's just going to be back under Wilford's control. It's like they all made the executive choice to lie about all this, and Pike's will, so it's like, what are you going to do? Like, he's your brother, you've had your ups and downs, but he has no choice but to enter a fight with him, which everyone was like, no, please don't let it come down to this, because everyone was hoping it wouldn't. The fact is, Pike was never going to back down, because it was a thing of both parties have to consent to the knives. It can't just be one. If you're going to resolve things, it has to be both, but if you're going to fight to death, it has to be both as well. So Josie was thinking, like, no, it's not going to come down to that at all. It won't. They'll fix everything will be okay. And it's like, sadly, it wasn't. Just because to protect the lie, to keep everything going, to keep people's hope alive, you have to lie. So, and they go toe-to-toe, and ends with Pike dying. I was hoping, like, in some shape or form, like, they would go into the fight, but Andre would, like, but there was no walking away from it. Even if Andre, like, incapacitated him, it's like, no, the rules are, if you go death fight, there's no breaking that, because it would be breaking such an old, Taily tradition. So it was, you know, in self-defense, too, because it's like, right, like, this is a fight to death. Given the opportunity, he wasn't going to hesitate to kill Andre, so. And his final words is like, I hope when you find it, it's frozen. You know, it's like, damn, dude. It's sad that it came down to this. And when it's all said and done, like, Andre, like, is shaken by it, because it's like, regardless of anything, despite their odds, it's still like, he didn't want to have to kill Pike. He didn't want them to be at odds. He wanted them to be brothers. He wanted us to be in this together. I think maybe even his own guilt of like, right, my actions led us to this. Like, if I hadn't been so focused on everything else, if I had focused on Pike, maybe I could have stopped all this from happening. And it had to come down to this also knowing, like, I killed Pike to protect a lie I created. Like, if I hadn't created this lie, then maybe, who knows what status the train would be in right now. But also, it probably makes him wonder, like, would Ruth be a better leader than me? Like, I'm curious, is he going to take anything that Pike said at value? Because considering his condition right now, it might be in the best interest of everyone for Ruth to kind of potentially take hold. But basically, after a fight like this, the tradition is that the person who survived, it's like there are no winners, only the person who's left alive, and they have to basically sit with the body all night to reflect on what they did, but also to lead that dead person into kind of essentially the afterlife. So, and I think in that moment, just like, because during the fight he ended up getting a blow to the head, and he's getting his concussion's kind of kicking in, and he's getting visions of New Eden again, and obviously he's getting visions of Pike, and it's just, everything is like ruminating in his head, and he just eventually passes out. So what that's going to look like going forward, like I said, maybe Ruth is going to like step in temporarily, and I'm just curious what the aftermath of all of this is going to be. How's it, like, the tale, like, it's the thing of like, right, like, they have to respect the rules. It is what it is. They both agreed to it. They settled it in a very tale-like way. It sucks that it ended this way, but this is the way it has to be, you know? Because Andre had said to Ruth, I'm sorry, and she's like, I'm sorry too, you know? Because he's like, right, I know how much he meant to you, and it's like, and she's saying, I'm sorry too, Dad. It's just like, things came to this because, I think it's because, like, right, he did all this because of me, but also, like, I know how important he was to you as well, so there is no happy ending here, you know? It's just, it's sadly, it seems like just further bloodshed will always be a price to pay aboard Snowpiercer, you know? So that's why this New Eden thing is kind of, you know, Andre's hedging all his bets, and it's like, if I'm wrong, then all this was worthless. I killed my brother for nothing. This has to matter. I'm curious how Asha's going to feel at the end of this, too, because she might blame herself, like, right, if I hadn't done this, like, you wouldn't have to have killed him to keep the secret that I wasn't, you know, so we'll have to wait and see. I'm still waiting on, like, whatever secrets she might still be hiding. Maybe none, but just there's something about her that's just, I'm like, what is it? There's something I mean, everyone's got their trauma that they're not really ready to talk about, but still. It's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.